I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin.
And we're Gay.
And His Enby.
Episode 13.
And we have nothing witchy for this episode. I feel like a bad witch, bad pagan. Like it's 13. It's our special number. And I didn't do anything special.
How dare you?
Yeah, well.
But we're going to get into all things Bravo this week. Hopefully that'll fill that void in certain ways.
But we have the Witches of WeHo coming up on Vanderpump Rules.
We got some witchy behavior to talk about, to say the least.
Say the very least. Before we get to Vanderpump Rules, obviously we will be talking about part 2 of the season 5 reunion for Miami. But first, let's dive into New Jersey. Wow, this week.
This week was we kind of did a little like psychoanalyzing last episode, and this was the episode about therapy. This was therapy corner. There was a lot of therapy this episode. We start though actually with there's a quick clip of Marge get after her wrist surgery and or like clearly loopy from the surgery at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's always so funny. Like it's such a just put a bunch of morphine in somebody and just let them go. And put a camera in their face.
Yeah, just don't do it to me because I'm allergic.
Well, yes, that would be that would not be good on camera.
That would be recording you committing murder.
It's not film. But we go to Teresa is going to her therapist to sort of like have a little session and talk about things. So and I'll say first off to sort of start about this. We've kind of been on the train of like I think like this feels really genuine with Teresa, and again I feel the same way. Like if she's acting, then she's a much better actress than I thought she was.
Yeah.
So like that's my like Teresa. When Teresa is calculated, it's obvious. So that's why I'm like, no, this has to be real. Like this has to be like.
Like, nobody fell for it when she said absolutely no, she had nothing to do with Danielle pulling Margaret's hair.
No.
We all knew. We all been knew. Like, it was written all over her face.
The posh fashion show thing where the guy came to say that Melissa was a stripper for him or whatever. Like, it right on her face completely. Like, she doesn't hide shit well. Like, it's not in her DNA.
So either she's been taking some A-list level acting classes or she's genuine.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that it's genuine. It feels right.
And she acknowledges like her past anger issues about how she didn't like, in retrospect, how she treated Margaret at last reunion. Even that reunion, Louis was telling her like, you need to stop. Like you're not coming off like well right now because of how you're acting. And like, obviously the stuff with the table flip and all that stuff, like she's, her anger has gotten the best of her. And she has, it's important for her to acknowledge that. And
I think that viewers, we have a tendency to want to give the credit for that to Louis. And I won't discredit Louis because I do think that she has made this effort due to his suggestion and pushing.
Yeah.
But she's done the work.
Yeah.
She's put in the time and effort, and because she wants to be a better person. So I think that it's better for her. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion, like, at the end of this season, should Melissa and Joe leave, or should Teresa and Louis leave? I think it might be better for Teresa to leave. And that's only for her own growth, because I think that this sort of environment is not good for her becoming the person she wants to become.
It's not going to help by any means.
No, especially if she's staying around someone who is as petty and down in the mud as Jennifer.
Sure.
Like that is her MO. And if that is her ride and die bitch, then like that's not healthy for your relationships moving forward.
But also, housewives in general. Like it's never going to be the place where like, like you can have moments of growth in that time, but you're going to always fall off the wagon. I feel.
The moment that you see people work through all of their issues, they're gone the next season.
Yeah.
Because they're no longer entertaining television. And honestly, I would love that for Teresa. I would love for her to have a life that is no longer worthy of everyone watching.
Yeah.
Like, give her some peace. She has been fighting tooth and nail for 13 seasons and then spent a year in there in jail where I'm sure she also had to fight tooth and nail. So, like,
she deserves a break.
Like, she deserves a break.
But she gets into also like everything that's been happening with the whole like Joe not coming to the housewarming party and sort of all that stuff. She talks about we get a little bit of the backstory of her family history as well about how her father was also very stubborn and that like they had basically
Shocker.
Well, yeah.
Nona was incredibly stubborn.
But that he basically like had an issue with one of her cousins to where they didn't talk for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And that because of that, like they never had like Teresa and her cousins like never really like had that distance, and she's worried about that with Melania and
a lot of
Gia
people
and Antonia.
A lot of people pointed out you had your cousins on the show at one point and blew that. So like
Yeah.
it's not just based on your dad's relationship. You kind of fucked that up too, Teresa.
Well, she also says that like he never really was the person to say like I love you to her, and that she was saying that she taught Gia to say it to him. And that's how it like he was able to start doing, being expressive in that way. And she talks about how she worries about it with their kids, and that like Antonia didn't go to Melania's Sweet 16, and Melania was really upset about it, and like that the distance is kind of there. She talks about how also like she wants peace and she wants a better relationship with Joe. She also though says that Joe's like anger kind of scares her in many ways. Like she talks about like how aggressive he was at the boys' night, and like, and we'll get to Joe's kind of hypocrisy on this later in the episode. Like, I think people could say, "Oh, that's Teresa being a hypocrite," but like, I think she in the start of this acknowledged her anger issues. I don't think she's denying that she also is dealing with that thing.
Right, but I think if she were to own that when she's talking to Joe about it, that would make a lot more headway.
Sure,
because I think that part of the issue is that when she is talking to Joe, it's still, yeah, but you did this. And
and I want to see that interact because we really haven't had that interaction with them yet this whole season. And like from when it was at Danielle's house, when Teresa and Melissa got into that fight, we talked about it. Like Teresa kind of conceded some things to Melissa. And so I want to see how that interaction would look like.
And I've said it in the past. I don't think they need to rehash all this shit. I think they just need to draw a line in the sand between the past and now and say what happened, and we are all hurt from that. And that is something that we need to heal on our own. But we're never going to be on the same page with what happened in the past. And that's okay. I think we just need to own the fact that we hurt each other. And we're not going to do that anymore.
You have to take a little and give a little.
Yeah.
In order to get to that point. We go to Margaret's house, and she's invited Jen Fessler over. She talks about how, like, even though she's still recovering after the surgery as well, but that she brought this up like a couple episodes ago about that Joe Benigno has been wiping her ass. I've never broken my hand or my wrist or anything of that. Like, this might get into a TMI territory. People don't wipe with either hand.
And most people just go with their dominant hand, I'm sure. I know that I have had issues with my shoulder, and like having to switch sides is a pain, but it's not impossible, Margaret.
That's what I'm just saying. It's not impossible.
Although you really trying to tell me that you don't have a bidet?
Well, and
as rich as you are, you don't have a bidet
in that house. It's a very.
You can get a Mr. Tushy for $50 on Amazon. I know you got a Mr. Tushy budget.
And she says, like, well, Joe doesn't mind. He's a plumber. It's just a job. It's like, okay.
Yeah, but like cleaning out your pipes and cleaning out pipes are different.
Very different things. And then we also cut over to Jennifer's house, where her kids are doing chores and Jennifer and Bill are relaxing. And so we're basically getting the two sides of the argument that happened at Jen Fessler's house. I love Jennifer, her petty ass just being like, immediately starting with Bill. So I don't want you to be that nice to Margaret when you see her at the baseball game. Just to start with that, it's just like, wow.
I can't stand her this season.
Well, and the one thing I do side with her on is that she said I was like a disheveled drug addict or whatever because I smoke marijuana.
Right.
And we talked about like I didn't like Margaret's marijuana shaming, and Jennifer does say like I have it. I smoke marijuana at the end of a night when my kids are in bed. Like,
and it's still legal in Jersey.
Yeah.
So like,
what's the big deal?
what's the big deal?
It's like having a glass of whiskey at the end of the night. It's
Right.
not that, crazy.
Or, the copious amounts of alcohol, in the form of wine or cocktails that these women, like nobody's ever died from a weed overdose.
No. It's fine. And yeah, well, yeah. So Jen Fessler, and this is why I like Jen Fessler this season. Like, she kind of holds Margaret a little bit to account in certain ways. Like, she was like, the way you were acting was not you, and like, it wasn't adult. She said it wasn't very adult like of you in the way both of you were acting.
She said, not nice.
Not nice. And it's like, good on her. Cause I do think while, people can take a side, whichever. I think I've talked about that it's reached a certain point with Margaret and Jennifer where they just start slinging at each other to where nobody looks like it's like, who cares who did what first? Like, it's like, you're at a place where it's just like, it's all mess. And so like someone has to be the bigger fucking person at the end of the day. But and Margaret's like, I'm not gonna, confront her at the baseball game. It's a thing for charity. Like, I'm not gonna worry about it. We go to Paulie's house where Dolores is at. This was I've always known Paulie was Irish. I mean, they've talked about Paulie being Irish. This is the first time I've noticed like Paulie's thick Irish accent. Like, he said something about, because I guess Dolores like fell in the shower or something, and like he helped her up, and he says, I think it's because you fell on your like,
what?
Like,
well, and he's got like really tan skin for an Irish guy. Like, we're normally super pale people.
It's like he does not give that vibe whatsoever. But he opens his mouth and it's just the fucking Lucky Charms like leprechaun. Like
maybe he was putting it on a little bit, but I don't think so. Like, I think it was legitimate, and it was like, really?
Okay. I clearly Dolores finds it attractive. And Dolores' dad comes over, and Paulie and Dolores' dad have kind of hit it off, and they sort of have a good dynamic. Dolores talks about how her dad really likes that Paulie seems committed, and that it's not just for a like casual day. Like, he wants to actually like have a long-term relationship with her, and like, Dolores has been so vocal about wanting that that's clearly important to her father. And then we find out that Paulie has to go in. He can't go to I keep saying baseball, but it's a softball game. Same difference. Has to go in for a heart procedure, so he can't make it to the game, and that's terrifying. Like, I don't like any of that stuff. And Dolores obviously is doesn't want anything to happen, and is clearly cares a lot about Paulie. And Dolores and her dad sort of go for a walk with Dog. Her dog's named Dog, which it's so
funny.
Yeah, it's so Dolores. And they talk about like Frank's issues with sort of distance at this point right now, and Dolores' dad is kind of like, you deserve sort of this happiness right now with Paulie, because for a long time you drove that bus alone in terms of the dynamic. And Dolores kind of talks, and this is where Dolores talks about like, I kind of put all my shit aside to give a family dynamic for Frank, even when he didn't deserve it. And and there was flashbacks about like, I mean, things were bad at a certain, like, he was like throwing shit at certain points. He was breaking furniture. He was like, it wasn't simply like, I think we lose sight sometimes that it wasn't just like, differences in sort of their relationship.
Like, he was abusive.
Yeah. And
he wasn't great.
And there's all the stuff with like his law, like, didn't he get like, stripped of his bar license or whatever with
something
like, so he was, and I would hope, and I think he admits like he wasn't the best husband. Like, right. So
I know we've had a lot of discussions about this particular relationship offline.
Yeah.
I feel for Frank because he has done a lot of work on himself to make himself not that person anymore.
Sure.
And while he has said, that he, still loves Dolores. I think it's more in the terms of once you love someone, you kind of always love them. There's always a part of you that is still connected to that person.
Yeah.
Um, and it's sad to me because this is his family, and it feels like out of nowhere. And I question, to me, especially looking at this from Frank's point of view, it's I've got this family, and it's not a traditional family, but that's okay. We've created this out of rubble. We had nothing and we had devastation in this family, but we have made it work, and we have made a system and a rhythm that works for
Yeah.
everyone here. And then along comes Paulie and things have to change. And I think from Frank's point of view, it looks like it's Paulie's fault. I don't know that that's necessarily the truth, but I know that that is a possibility because we're still not getting from Dolores, I don't want him around. We're getting more from Dolores.
Doing it for it, even if he doesn't vocalize it necessarily to her, she's still saying, I want to do it for him. Like, out of respect for Paulie. Like,
right. And that's where I have a problem. It's like
she should do it for her. I agree with that.
There should be no man that comes into any woman's life and makes any demands on who she can or cannot have a relationship with.
Right. What I will say is, and we talked about it a little bit a couple episodes ago with like Joe Gorga and like the kind of like Italian family and sort of the rules in that regard. I think the more I listen to Dolores talk about it, like I think she didn't choose out of her heart to keep this relationship going in spite of all that Frank did. Like I think it was in many ways kind of expected of her because you're the wife, you're the mother, you have to like put your feelings on the back burner, you have to put your emotions on the back burner to preserve a family. And I think part of it is the Paulie element. And I do think, yes, she should do it for her and nobody else, and not because a man or whatever is, either telling her directly or indirectly to do this. I think also, though, that like there is sort of like a Dolores in many ways is traditional Italian, but also is willing to sort of like move with the times and move with how society is now. And I think she's learning that, what being a quote unquote independent woman is like, and what, not having to have that burden and carry it when you don't want to necessarily. And Frank should always be a part of it. Like, that's why I try to reiterate that even though we differ on this, like, I do think Frank should be and naturally when you have kids with somebody and when you've been in a marriage for enough of a period of time, they're always going to be in your life in some form or fashion. That you're never going to clean break completely from that.
Well, but here's the thing. It doesn't seem like she felt like she had to. She didn't have to bring him on this show. Like when she came onto the show, she didn't have to bring him with her. I mean, she chose to do that. And that indicates that she was happy in that arrangement, that she was at least passively willing to have him be a constant part of her life. And then to bring him on this show, and then like with other men that she's been with in the past, this has not been an issue. But then all of a sudden it's an issue now with Paulie. That to me indicates that Paulie has something directly to do with why Frank is being cut out at this point.
But look what ended up with, I forgot her last boyfriend before Paulie, the one who wouldn't commit to her.
Something with a D, wasn't it?
Something.
That Frank is living with now?
Well, that's why I was
doctor.
That's what I was going to say. Like, he's then befriended Frank. And like sort of like now him and Frank have that relationship.
But see, to me, that's healthy. It's like, well, this person's going to be here. We might as well be friends. Like, why is there any animosity between Frank and Paulie?
Not animosity, but like
But it started off that way.
No,
When Paulie
I'm not talking about
goes,
Paulie. I'm talking about the other guy. Like when Dolores and that relationship is done, and when that is like we're not going to be in a marriage. You know, he doesn't want to commit to me, etc. And when that person then goes and befriends Frank, and then they have that close relationship.
but
Like,
it wasn't that it happened after the fact. They were friends while he
Yes.
was there.
Yes and no.
And at that point, you can't tell somebody you're not allowed. It's not like this guy was abusive or he
no,
was
and I'm
awful.
not saying she
to
should say you're
Dolores.
not allowed, but like I just feel like she has again, this is decades upon decades. This isn't like we'll get into it with Vanderpump Rules, and that's a case of like you spent 9 years of your life, you know, and like people would make the argument, I don't think that's what you should, and I don't think it's how you should think of it, but like 9 years wasted. Like this is a decade or decades upon decades with Dolores. Like she has to maybe make some choices that are a little tough, but to do something that is, you know, to solidify her life going forward and how she wants it to look like. You know, so I that's just the way I look at it. But we go to the batting cages with Rachel and her husband, Melissa and Joe, and Frank and his girlfriend Brittany, and they're practicing for the softball game. Frank gets into a little bit more about sort of the distance with Dolores. But then Rachel tells Melissa about what Jennifer and Teresa were telling her at Danielle's daughter's birthday party about, you know, you'd rather have Margaret as a friend than an enemy, was what Teresa said. And then Melissa's like, well, this is proof that like Teresa's not actually changed. She doesn't doesn't want to be a friend with Margaret, etc. Again, devil's advocating maybe, but like I don't know if those are necessarily incongruent statements. I think you can say you can want to improve a relationship with a person and get to a better place with a person, and also inform a new person in this friend group who's coming into a new situation. It's better to be on Margaret's good side than her bad side, which I think is true. Like obviously,
Yes, but there's a coloring to that statement, and I feel like you know that. Like, there's no way to say that without indicating this is a bad person. Like, to me, that's the undercurrent of that statement.
Do you think Teresa wouldn't necessarily say the same thing about Jennifer?
No, I don't think she would. Because I think that she's biased. I think that still, even after all of this, is biased and does not see how awful Jennifer is. I think that Jennifer has some great qualities. She is a very good mother. She is a very good wife, but I do not think that she has been the best person in this group. She has been awful when it comes to her friendships outside of her friendship with Teresa.
And I brought this up too about like that like a couple seasons ago, that after show, Jackie had made that comment about like essentially saying, in my view, kind of saying the same thing, like saying you don't want to be on Margaret's bad side. And so I don't know if that I understand that it colors different. I understand that it colors it in the sense that Teresa and Margaret have had their issues for seasons. And so yes, coming from her, it does have a different connotation naturally in that realm. But I don't think that comment on its own is necessarily shady. But Melissa,
to me though, I don't know. I just to me it feels like saying you keep her as a friend and not as an enemy means that like she's a bad person. That is to me at the core of that statement, as opposed to you don't want to be on her bad side, which just means that she's fiercely defensive against,
and you don't want to fuck with her. Like that's
right, but that's different to me. Like to me, you'd rather have her as a friend than an enemy, says that she goes after people, as opposed to you don't want to be on her bad side, says she defends herself.
Sure. But again, I also want to see the receipts of like this, like, whether she digs up dirt on people, etc. And that has been talked about for years from multiple different people. So I just want to see the receipts on it at the end of the day. If there are no receipts, then it's bullshit and whatever. I don't necessarily put it past Margaret necessarily, and I don't think it necessarily makes her I feel like I'm saying necessarily a lot. It doesn't necessarily make her a bad person, in my view. But
No, I don't think it does either. But I think that getting back to Margaret's point, I think the point is that when you are trying to repair something with someone, you don't talk bad about them behind their
well,
back.
that's my thing about this cast and just Housewives in general too. It's just like, do you think saying something it's not gonna like? How many times this season have they like? If Teresa and Jennifer are these masterminds, one, they're also really dumb at it because it's like you don't go to say to Melissa, "Hey, Margaret made this comment about allegedly made this comment about a ball player. Is it true?" And think that Melissa's not going to take that to Margaret or that Rachel's not
Right.
going to take that to Melissa. Like they talk to each other. Like it's like that's also my frustration with it. But then Melissa basically says that like this proves that Teresa hasn't changed and that she doesn't like Joe, etc. And that and then in her confessional was also talking about Louis and saying that Louis convinced Teresa to befriend Margaret so that she won't tell the truth about him.
Right, which I think all of this is reaching. Because like we have said, we feel like Teresa has changed, and it seems to us like she has made a vast difference from just even a few months ago at the reunion. But I think I know again we talk a little bit offline when we're watching these, and we talked about how we think that a lot of their view is just old hurt coloring what they're seeing now, and they're not able to see the truth of it.
Sure, but I think like it's very hypocritical in certain. I mean, like
Yeah,
like
I mean,
if Teresa would have said something of that effect in your direction, you would have raked her over the coals for it. Where you're pulling it from nothing, and you're
yeah,
ascribing that to that person. Like that to me, it doesn't help your like. Obviously, it's you can't always see the forest through the trees, but it doesn't help your case at the end of the day. If the message you're wanting to leave from this season of like Teresa is the toxic one,
yeah.
like it doesn't help that.
Like when you're already upset with someone, everything that they do is bad. It's that whole, God, why are you breathing so loud? And it's like, I'm just breathing.
Yeah.
Like you can't like take the truth of the situation and see it for what it is. All you can see is it colored by past actions, past hurt, past grudges, all
Well,
of this stuff. And they've got over a decade of pain.
and we talked before, or at least I talked before of like, the fact that they keep ascribing like, well, if she offers this olive branch, she's doing it for the cameras. But if she did it before filming, she's doing it for the cameras. It's like,
I don't think it's intentional. I think they're just hurt. I think that they can't see the change that has happened because they are so used to seeing Teresa in a certain way.
yeah,
And they just aren't ready to see her as she is now yet.
yeah. So we go to the softball game for charity. This is the second year that they're doing this. And everyone's sort of getting together and getting their jerseys on. Danielle,
Getting their jersey on.
Margaret basically talks about what Jennifer said about like the whole ball player, like the thing about the ball player thing, telling Melissa, you can be, if A-Rod had J-Lo, etc., all that stuff. And Danielle kind of was like, I don't know if I would necessarily want to hear that comment from a friend of mine. Like, if you want to, she said, if you want to lift me up, tell me I have perky breasts or something.
They didn't give her the full context, but I honestly also think that she's already drank the Jennifer Kool-Aid. So
I want to believe that Danielle's a little smarter than that. Like, I at least from what I've seen in terms of like her outside of that dynamic. I also think it's hard when like you're bringing Housewives, happens all the time where someone new comes into the friend group, but then they have to sort of operate as if they've already have established the precedent of everything that's happened in past seasons.
well, if you didn't go back and watch seasons 1 through 12 when you got cast for season 13,
Sure.
like,
I mean, they a lot of people may claim that they don't, but like, come on.
that's real dumb.
And then Danielle basically tells Marge what Jen and Teresa said about her at the party. And Margaret is obviously very upset about that. Jennifer arrives and pretty much ignores Margaret for the most part, which, like, like I feel like Marg said in the conversation with Jen Fessler, I'm just gonna ignore her. So it's like if it's a charity event, whatever, like just like keep your distance, I get. And then so Teresa, then this moment happens. So Teresa, Louis, and Louis' son is also playing, and the girls arrive. And this could have been selective editing because Housewives should do this, but it seemed as though like Joe like spotted them coming in, and then like took Gino off to like do whatever to like actively avoid them. Which like okay, like
Yes, but even if he did do that, they came back in later and were. I think it was just I need to breathe a little bit. I wasn't ready for them to walk in, so I need to take a second aside and collect myself and
yeah,
be ready to go out there and be cordial.
and
And he did. He went out there later and it didn't feel tense, it didn't feel bad,
well,
it felt good.
the girls were like talking with Joey and like sort of and Teresa as well, and it felt very warm. Like
Yeah.
if that's where I think like Teresa actively has made a change. The way she'll like like even when they were on the field, like she's like talking to Joey about like his life and stuff. It's like it felt very genuine. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to fake. I mean, it's very easy to fake that kind of stuff in it for it to be obvious.
Yeah.
So like that's one thing. And then the only thing I had though was that Joe in his confessional said something. He's like, "I'm avoiding Teresa because she can switch from 0 to 100, and then I have to defend myself." It's like, okay, pot called the kettle black on
I
that.
feel like y'all both inherited that gene.
Like seriously, like I talk about like with the boys' night this season where he's pounding on the table, which flashback to the christening. Like if we're talking about, I understand like they had issues in the family for before that, but like that specific moment, if you watch it back, Teresa comes to the table to like give her congratulations and all that stuff, and Joe is dismissive and at one point calls her a bitch, and like that's what sets everything off.
Also,
so it's like
cue the clip from that one trip where Joe Giudice was out of the room and Teresa, and then Joe walks in and
hey, I want to talk to
Joe
you.
Gorga literally tackles him like he's a linebacker or something, and it's like, bro, he didn't even like he didn't do anything.
Yeah. So they're playing softball, and they eventually kind of sort of pull ahead in the game. I was like, I'm not gonna call this like I know anything about sports and like care about like
No.
who got the highest RBI or what, I don't know.
Sports balls,
But Rachel is talking to Jennifer Aiden at one point, and she says that she thought Olivia was really cute when she was talking with her at Danielle's daughter's party, and that Olivia said that she wanted to be a relationship therapist when she grew up. And the way Rachel said it, though, she's like, which was kind of ironic. And I was like, you don't have to say it like that.
Yeah, you didn't need to mention that. I think everyone saw the irony. We were good. We didn't need a comment.
But Jennifer talks how it's actually kind of upsetting to her because it feels like the whole Bill's cheating coming out last season is sort of like resonating with her and is affecting the kids in certain ways.
Yeah.
She basically says that like when her and Bill are fighting, like Olivia will constantly be like, remember, you guys love each other. And that sucks. Like,
yeah.
Like I think we talk about divorce and like issues in a marriage as if like, it's the divorce. Once the divorce happens, that's when it affects children. But if there's tension building in a house, like that's going to affect them for years and years and years down the line. And
yeah,
hopefully not like.
But honestly, if this, like, because Jennifer had talked about wanting to do music, I think, previously. And, I'm a musician, like, so I'm not going to ever shit on somebody wanting to be a musician as a career. It's an amazing, beautiful career. But art is hard.
Sure.
Like making it as an artist is very difficult. And if that is something that you are incredibly motivated to do, go for it. Absolutely. But I also think if she is inspired by this that her family has gone through
and use it for good
and uses it for good to help people, and it makes her feel like she is like making a mark on the world and making the world a better place, then good for her.
I mean, look at what Gia's doing. Gia's getting into immigration law and studying that.
And if it's something that she enjoys and she feels like there's like when you're in your element and you're doing kind of what you were meant to do, you feel it. Like it resonates in your spirit. It resonates in your soul. And if this ends up being that for her, I know she's like 11 or 12. But like if it ends up being that for her, then maybe that's why this happened in the grand scheme of things. Maybe this needed to happen so that she would be motivated into what she was meant to do.
Yeah.
And I think there can be good to come from this, and Jennifer just kind of needs to let it be. If it's a momentary flash in the pan, then it'll be a flash in the pan and it'll die.
Well, and we'll get to it later, but like I feel like she's talked about it a couple episodes ago of like because like wanting the best for her children all the time and
Right.
like not and I think part of it is not releasing control in certain ways and wanting to protect them in every possible way imaginable.
Yeah.
And it's like that's not realistic just in life. Like
Yeah.
it. But they win the softball game and they raise $200,000. So I like that this was like a reoccurring thing that like, they did last season. This like I like sort of like yearly trends that they do on the show. Like,
Yeah, I really like that.
and it was a fun little sort of moment. But we start the episode with therapy and then we end it with therapy because then we go with Jennifer and Bill to sort of a marriage counselor to talk about their issues, and that Jennifer talks about how like it took a lot to get Bill to do this because Bill's very opposed to therapy. He seems very sort of like old school in that regard. And that she basically tells him like bring up anything that comes, like don't be afraid to speak your mind in terms of this. I really like this scene because I feel like this is the most vulnerable Jen's been in her time on the show. Like actively, like just like because here's the thing I appreciated last season, like when Margaret brought out the room what Bill did, anyone could have like doubled down. They could have like tried to make an excuse. They could have tried to. I think a lot of fans really liked that Jen owned it in that moment and sort of like was very honest that whole season. Like, and I think we see it here, and I appreciate that from her. Like, it seems that she's willing to sort of show her whole life, even the messier parts, in that way.
What I didn't like is that online a lot of fans.
Oh, you were saying this.
A lot of fans are drawing a connection between Bill and David Bador.
Not the same thing.
Shannon's abusive ex, and absolutely not. They're saying he seems checked out in the same way, and it's like, no, he's guarded because of culture. That does not mean that he's abusive. That does not mean that he, any of the other myriad of things. It's not even comparing apples to oranges here. I mean, even if you want to make the joke of, no, she's in Jersey. She's not in New York.
Okay.
But even if you want to say it's not even, or try to make the comparison, it's apples to oranges, I would argue that it's something more akin to, trying to compare apples and like a Martian. They're vastly different things.
Yeah.
They're not in the same category. They're not in the same... They're barely in the same solar system.
Bill doesn't cut Jennifer down in many ways. Like, and also Jennifer and Shannon aren't the same people in that regard. Like, they're vastly different. So it's like, I don't like that comparison. And like,
well, and it vilifies Bill. And I think that is gross to indicate that Bill is anywhere near capable of what David did. David was in many regards a monster.
Yeah.
And that is disgusting to malign a person of color to that based on a blip on a television show.
Also,
like, it's not.
Also, people have marital issues, and people are like it just because there's marital issues, and then there's like you said, abusive shit that's like beyond that.
Yeah, this is very different.
So, and Jennifer sort of brings up to the therapist how she's worried that the kids are taking it. She says that Olivia like will tell them like if they're bickering or whatever to be like, okay, guys, kiss, like, and that is hard because you could tell that is something that's like resonating. And Bill kind of talks about that, like he kind of has the perception of being the tough parent of the two, and that Jennifer's always viewed by the kids as being more supportive. So when the affair stuff came out, it sort of compounded in that regard to where
it's easy to make him the bad guy.
Yeah, and I can understand that, like feeling that way. And then but Jennifer talks about how like part of the frustration she has is that what happens then is that Bill tries to pass the micromanaging of the kids onto her, like not just the general household stuff, but like because he talks about like being really tough on them and that she needs to pick up some of that load. But it feels like Jennifer is like, it feels like I run the house in many ways in every other aspect of the parenting dynamic, and then I'm getting critiqued for not doing a good enough job, as if I'm sort of like you're my supervisor in
Right.
certain ways. And I understand that too. And like, she feels like you don't really participate in many ways. Like, I understand you have a stressful job, but then you come home and you're in the beach house for 3 hours and then we go to bed. And like,
Right.
you know,
Like the division of labor doesn't have to be equal, but it does need to be equitable.
and we saw it from the very beginning when they came on the show, like that they had a very some people would argue backwards, but like very traditional concept of like what a wife does and what a husband does
Right.
in terms of raising children, in terms of the household. And part of it is their cultural backgrounds as well.
But
Like,
I mean, part of it's also because she's a stay at home mom. So stay at home moms are going to take on more of the parenting role. I get that because the other parent is at work.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I mean. It doesn't need to be equal because clearly she's around more. So she's going to be taking on more of the parental things. She's going to be taking on more of the, household things. But it does need to be equitable.
Yeah.
It needs to be to where he is contributing when he is home. And, but I also see from his perspective some of the negative things, quote unquote negative things, like having to instill discipline and those sorts of things, need to be picked up by her because he can't be coming in
I
and
also,
taking on all of the negative aspects.
and we don't have children, but I also always believe like, I don't believe in those elements. I think it should be both parents. I think there is
Right.
I think it's not effective at the end of the day to have it be one parent's job versus the other.
Right.
Like it to me, in my mind. But and Jennifer said that like she made a comment about like, it's been 20 years of never complaining and swallowing every pill. And you kind of like rolled your eyes a little bit at it of like, really? That doesn't sound like Jennifer. But I do think there's a difference. I think there's a difference of how she operates in the group and with other women.
But even not just in the group, like we have seen her be very critical to his face of Bill in the privacy of their home. So, I mean, it's not just that she just takes, and maybe she did before she was on the show. Maybe she decided, I'm on television, I need to grow a backbone.
That's what I feel.
But it doesn't feel that way. She feels comfortable in that role, in my view.
And maybe it's what I was talking about, like with Dolores. Like maybe over time, maybe growing in sort of a more modern era, like maybe you're slowly starting to learn those things. And sometimes when you learn those things, sometimes you go overboard with them. And
Right.
sometimes like you push the boundaries a little too far in that regard.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I talked about this when we first got together because like my ex before Eamon was extremely abusive, and through like going through that and the trauma of all of that, I learned to stand up for myself.
Right.
And I learned to put my foot down when it came to my opinion of things, my memory of events, and things like that. And when at the beginning of this relationship, Eamon was a lot more laid back and timid in his opinion on things. And I was very worried about running over him. I was very worried about making sure that I didn't overstep those bounds because I didn't want to become the person that I had just left.
And vice versa, like knowing your story. Like I was also very conscious of like allowing you to not be timid and not, and to be able to like support your opinion and support what your stance on things and not, have you shrink under. So I think that was the issue. It was
and
like
the reason that worked is because we communicated that.
Yeah.
And like everything comes down to open and honest communication. And I think that's why, maybe we should have a like couples therapy podcast, but
oh God.
Like I think that's why we have worked so well together as a pair because like I hear a lot of people say, it's really hard work being in a relationship and I'm like, really? Because there've been challenges that we've faced, but it's always been us facing them together. It's never been us against each other. And I think that is a fundamental difference in the way that we view the world. We are partners, we are husbands, and we face the world together. Like, if we have to, like, if we're surrounded, we're back to back. We're not facing each other.
Yeah.
We're not fighting each other. We are facing a problem. We are finding a solution together. And I think that is the fundamental difference and the reason that we don't really find a lot of difficulty in being married. We find a solution together. And I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But it was really good to see this therapy session at even the messy parts, like, good to see, like, communication, at least in the, like, sort of safe realm between them.
Yeah.
Was good to see. And I think this was a really good episode overall. Like, Jersey, like, we talked about, we joked that, like, we're really, like, psychoanalyzing certain things, but I feel like Jersey's the season to do it, and they're giving us a lot of material to do it.
Well, and with them being a family dynamic, there's more we get to see more of their lives.
Yeah.
You know, as a comparison to other shows where we don't really get deep into their families. Like Potomac, for example, we don't really get a lot of deep dive into what's going on behind the scenes. We really just get the women and maybe their husbands. But, you know, there's not a lot of kids involved. There's not, you know, half of, you know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of depth when it comes to people involved behind the scenes. So it's hard to go to that place, especially when you have half the cast hiding all of that stuff from us.
Sure. And
Jersey doesn't do that. There's so
open.
much transparency on Jersey, and I really appreciate that. And I think it's why it's one of the fan favorite shows, because it is so real. And it's like, it doesn't feel fake at all. It doesn't feel like anyone's hiding anything. It's just open and honest, and it's refreshing when it comes to, and it does get dark because of that. But I don't know. It's interesting, and it brings something different that none of the other shows do.
I agree. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're talking part 2 of the Real Housewives of Miami reunion. Don't go away.
Well, hello, friends. I'm your pal in the mainstream media.
And I'm the Riz.
And, you know, Riz, it takes years of strenuous, dedicated training before you're worthy to step inside a professional wrestling ring. But it takes even more time to develop complex, highly astute opinions about professional wrestling. Am I right?
That is correct. And you know where we can combine that?
Yes.
On the Wrestling Mayhem.
That's right.
I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin.
And if you're anything like us, you live your life out loud.
And when it comes to issues of discrimination, inequity, and outright bigotry, we use every platform we have to speak out against systems of oppression that perpetrate violence against marginalized groups.
That's why we are so proud to wear designs from the Survivors Know merch store. Their team has created designs that feature unapologetic, empowering, and survivor-centered messaging that range from mild,
like accountability is love and toxicity is not on the menu,
to a little more spicy.
Like one of my favorites, fuck your laws, fuck your system, transformative justice now, which has a cute little happy flower on it.
Each design is available on a variety of items, from t-shirts and hoodies to bags, blankets, magnets, and even stickers. And as more items become available, the options will continue to grow.
100% of the proceeds go back into supporting the amazing work done at Survivors Know to support survivors, workers, and survivor advocates by organizing, challenging the status quo, and creating alternatives to the systems that fail us.
Support Survivors Know by shopping today at survivorsknow.threadless.com.
That's survivorsknow.threadless.com.
Sidekick Media Services. We are your sidekick in business for social media, video production, and more. Find out more at sidekickmediaservices.com.
Welcome back to A Gay and His Enby. Let's take a trip south to the very almost tropical tip of Florida into Miami.
I love that you said it that way, because technically we're in New York City for this, but
that's true, we are.
It works. It's fine. But this Miami reunion, it's
In that case, let's cross a bridge.
yes, exactly. We're coming back from the explosive first part with the sort of Alexia moment of her making that comment about like, well, if you believed in yourself, Lisa, you wouldn't have let Lenny do those things to you. And Lisa, I will say, handled this in a really classy, like,
Good for her,
clap
because
back
she
way.
could have clawed her eyes out and I would have supported it. But good for her for holding back.
Yeah, Lisa's very much like she's dumb in many ways, but in sort of certain ways, but she's mature also in many ways.
Well, and she didn't let her change the narrative off of herself.
yeah,
And that's what she was trying to do, was change the story and move the story off of herself onto Lisa. And it was like, no, you're keeping the focus. We're not moving this. We're staying on your neck.
yeah. And then like Andy asked if like there's any like last minute people like Alexia want to apologize to, and she apologized to Julia again about the Russian prostitute comment, and then apologizes to Gertie, and Gertie accepts it and was very much like it was probably a misunderstanding, whatever. But she notably does not apologize to Adriana, which they all sort of kind of pick up on. And then they go on to essentially a lunch break. But the cameras follow them, which this was like, I normally hate when they do too much of like the backstage stuff.
It
but,
was necessary.
but
with
it was
this.
very necessary. Nicole and Gertie are talking. Nicole like said that like Alexia really only like majorly apologized to Julia because that was one of the things in which like she could have gotten canceled for.
Right.
Which like fair point. Like I think
At the end of the day, her apologies are self-serving.
I mean, I don't think there's like a large like how dare you say Russian women are prostitutes like dynamic like that's not in terms of like the people like calling for cancelization of people. That's not like But,
Yeah, I mean, but
I mean,
also,
it's very like anti-woman, I guess. But like,
it is very anti-woman. But I also think that with things going on in the world today, a lot of the people watching Housewives are not necessarily pro-Russia. So,
Sure.
So maybe that's why there
But
wasn't a giant.
yeah, but and Julia's not either. Like, even though she is Russian, like,
Yeah.
she.
Well, but people will throw people of a nationality together. Doesn't
Sure.
matter their opinion or their stance on things.
Yeah. And then Alexia goes back to talk to Julia to sort of like apologize again. And the whole time Adriana's like in the corner, like getting her
great.
makeup done with this ring light. And just overhearing everything. And so like they sort of start talking, and like Julia's like, I just kind of want you to find peace with Adriana because me and Adriana friends are. Alexia's like, I don't want to, and then
Nicole is also around the corner in the same room.
Well,
so
yes. So because they start at one point later, Nicole like literally like as they like dull down on the fighting at one point, Nicole just walks by and goes, I gotta go to the bathroom. It was the funniest scene. It was like, oh God.
Like, is the fur done flying for a second? I need to get out of this room.
Yeah. But they start sort of fighting, and Alexia and Adriana are getting into it. Alexia brings up, and well, I forgot about this from last season, where Alexia, she's bringing up the fact that like part of the reason like she doesn't trust Adriana is what she said last season about her husband, her deceased ex-husband Herman, who was secretly gay and sort of that stuff. And Adriana, I thought, was out of pocket when she was like, so I have a friend who says that he died having sex with a man. Like, you didn't need to say that to her.
Yeah, you didn't need it was, and I think we talked about it at the time how that was like, you didn't need to bring that up.
Yeah, and I can understand also like it is a pattern with Adriana of doing this, like sometimes. Yeah. And so I can understand also, like, as much as the Frankie comment was like, she at a bigger point, I can understand when this person has made those like repeated comments that you think it's coming from a malicious place.
Yeah, I think she just doesn't, like, she sees connections where things are related, and she'll bring it up and not realize it's inappropriate until after she says it and sees people's reaction.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Like, Adriana, even in the first 3 seasons, was such a fire starter.
She seems to like just stumble into it, though. Like, the way I read it, it seems, I won't say innocent, but I find it hard to say it's malicious. I just think she's, what was that word that they like to use with Sutton last season?
Oh God, about how she, like when
clumsy.
Oh, you're very clumsy with your words.
I think Adriana's just clumsy with her words.
Yeah.
And that's all that is.
And then Adriana tries to make the argument of what Leah Black said last season about like, oh, you outed Herman after he died. It's like, and I said that I didn't agree with that at the time. I love Leah Black, but like, I think Alexia is right to sort of shit. One, it was out in the like the gay men in Miami knew he was gay. Like clearly, it'd been out in the.
I mean, and he'd been out in the streets, but
Yeah, but like I think I actually thought what Alexia did last season was actually very helpful for the community in many ways, and like, I thought her position on it was like, I'm sad that he couldn't come out, be his true self. But like, if he had this like lover behind my back, I'm glad at least in those moments that he was happy. Like, I thought was actually
it was big of her.
And very progressive of her, like in that regard. Like, so
because at the end of the day, it was an affair. Like she had every right to vilify him and rip him to shreds. And instead she chose grace and mercy, which is a little out of character.
Yeah.
A little bit.
No, it's completely out of character. And then like like I said, the fighting dies down and Nicole has to go to the bathroom. And then her and Alexia and Julia just start having conversation again. And Julia's like, I'm not trying to be like this like peace and love, whatever, like kumbaya person. And she brings up like, Martina is like, she was apparently supposed to be there that day for the reunion, but is too sick from her chemo.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I wish, part of me just wishes that we don't have to go for each other's throats. Like I'm just saying it to like put it into perspective. And Alexia is like, I just don't want to be made out to be like I'm a mean girl, like that I'm this like vicious mean person.
But you are though.
She is. And like 10 seconds later she kind of proves it. So she starts crying and then you just hear Adriana in the background, those are crocodile tears, Alexia. And Alexia is like, you know what? And like goes back to fighting Adriana.
But is it at this point that Alexia was like leaving and then Adriana says that and she comes back in?
Yeah.
So when that happens, there's a part of somebody's crew is this shorter black woman that's like maybe in her late 30s, early 40s.
I think it was.
She's got a face mask and a turban and like
Yeah.
glasses. And she's like right in Alexia's path. And so she's between Alexia and the camera. And she's like, oh shit. Like trying to get out of the way.
It's a really tight space.
I cackled because she was like, I don't want to get between these women. Like, don't put me on television. I don't want this shit. Like, I'm just here getting paid and then going home. Like, this is not... Don't get me in the crossfire. This bullshit.
And speaking to the like mean girl element of it, Alexia is like, you just want to be like us or whatever. You want to be that's why you dyed your hair blonde like us. And it's just like, again, we talked about it last episode. Like Alexia embracing the villain, just like being like, yeah. And so they storm off, and then like they get ready for the rest of the reunion. Kiki's there, is finally on the couch. They ask Kiki about her fight with Adriana on the boat for her music video, where she had the Burger King back in her hand,
right, and was eating the cold Whopper.
And she's just like, look, I struggled a lot, and I ate cold Whoppers. I got no problem with that, and I was hungry. I love Kiki. So they go to Julia. There was a shady question about like, Julia, do you like now looking back, do you remember your daughter's school name? Because she couldn't remember what it was.
And apparently still no. But it's like a 3-letter
and it's in
name
France.
And it's in French. And I mean, I get it. She's like already learned 2 full languages fluently. Like, try to make her learn French too. No, just let her alone.
But then we get more into sort of the Julia Martina stuff. She confirmed what we thought, which was that the adoption's on hold right now, the adoption process. But she says that they were pretty far along.
Yeah, like they were literally just waiting for a call from an agency that said that they had someone. And we had talked offline about the worry of, oh no, what if they had ended up with a child and then this happened, and now like what is that like? And now I'm a little bit worried that it's going to put in jeopardy their ability to get a child in the future.
I hope it's, I mean, I hear the process is like very stringent, and like that could be like a mark against it. Just that would make it more difficult.
Well, and it also makes it more of a, dealing with a newborn or a toddler is going to be very, very, very difficult for Martina
Yeah.
recovering from cancer. If she recovers, God, I hope so. But like she's facing 2 cancers at like right now. And it's going to be a long, hard road. And we don't know how many years this will take. She's already in her 60s.
Yeah.
So like, I wonder if this is maybe we need to put this down and like focus on Martina, focus on y'all's relationship together and put this dream away.
Yeah.
Like it's time to let it go.
They talk about the sort of really sweet moment where Julia gets into the water with Martina and as they're swimming and stuff like that, and how like it was a big moment for Julia because she doesn't like water and like that it was romantic and that. She talks about sort of how also the cancers kind of like helped her evolve on the sort of the stuff that she was like expressing during the season about like she doesn't just want dinners for 2 anymore, and she says I would give anything for a dinner for 2 with Martina now because of
Right.
everything, and that's obviously it's terrible and like so heart-wrenching. And then I like that Andy brought up like he was like I really love seeing you two at BravoCon, and like Martina was like carrying your purse at certain points and like so proud of you in that regard, and like asked a lot about like how it takes for like how it feels for her being such a tennis legend and such a celebrity in that regard to like be the second in the relationship, and that she was like that Martina just takes to it like a natural, and that it's like she's more than happy to like
Did you notice the picture?
Which one?
The picture. So at BravoCon, they have these floor decals.
Yeah.
Of all of the Bravo stars, and they have their names on them, but they're like the Bravo logo, kind of like the Hollywood star, stars, right?
Right.
But it's the chat bubble, the speech bubble, the Bravo has as their logo. Did you notice what the next bubble up from?
No.
Raquel.
Whoops.
I saw that and I was like, ah! Step on it. Step on it, Martina. Get it.
I think that not knowing in retrospect, but yes. But this was a really sweet moment. And I like we said, I love the relationship, and hopefully, like Martina can get past this because it's, really great to see them together on this show. They take another break, and Marisol takes a bathroom break. They now have they have a section that's literally like with a label on it that says Marisol's bathroom because of like last season at the reunion, how every fucking commercial break Marisol had to go pee. Like,
well, at a certain point, your bladder becomes the size of a pea.
Well, and also maybe stop drinking. That would help. Or at least don't do mixers. Like that's like mixers are what makes you pee at the end of the day. Like,
well,
sort of. I mean, and it makes you pee more often, I would argue. But and then what was that? Like Lisa brings up that her makeup artist has like a pee funnel. I don't know why she brought this up.
I don't either. I think it's like one of those.
Yeah, like it's like a catheter essentially. Like,
no, it's
not like directly, but like
no, like I know that it's like a what's the brand name?
Oh God,
like a Pee-wee or something like that. But it's something that a lot of like women will take it camping, for accessibility, and also a lot of trans men use it.
Oh, okay.
Like so that they can like use the urinal in the men's bathroom, and it's less awkward.
Right.
And so to me, I was like, oh well, this is nice, like placement of a
really important thing.
Of a really important thing, but then like everybody kind of blew it off, and it wasn't in a great light. Like it could have been.
Yeah,
like
I didn't know
highlighted a little bit better.
I didn't know any of that, so yeah, definitely. And then they come back. So Nicole starts talking about Andy brings up if anyone's talked to Ana Quinones, who was on season 2, and she's someone who's very vocal online, like about the show and some of the people on the show. And like Nicole said that like her and Leah Black were like sending her emails or whatever, like ahead of the reunion or something. Like, which, like, it seems very, like, getting her prepped, which, I mean, I feel like we see that a lot with other franchises nowadays. Like, the past housewives, like, still sticking their nose in things in many ways, which is
Bethany Frankel.
oh god. Well, hers is more blatant and out front. Teddy's more more undercover. I mean, well, I don't even want to get into Teddy and what she said about Vanderpump this week.
Oh, jeez.
You literally get a life. But then Nicole makes a comment of like, if people are going to come for me, I'll do anything to defend myself. And they're still in the commercial break. And then Larsa and Nicole start getting at it, and he's like, guys, like, we're not filming right now. Stop. Like just save it. Like, it was like, I've never seen that happen before where it's just like save it for the fucking actual, like, parts of the reunion.
I love how he's like, he says that, and then when they come back from commercial, he literally goes to something else.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't go
Not
directly
announcing
into that and acknowledge that and let them go.
So he's like, so
no, you got to hold it.
So Gertie, how many times are you having sex with Russell? And she's like, I'm like 3 times a week, as she says. And then Larsa tries to say that when she was with Scotty, she was having sex 4 times a night.
Absolutely not.
That's not, even Alexia, who was like her ride or die this reunion, is like, excuse me, what the hell? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Like, somebody called Dorinda and tell her that there's a new Holland tunnel. Like,
oh god. And then I forgot how she brings it up, but there was something about, like, they bring up Marcus Jordan, and she's like, well, he wears a size 15 shoe, so I think he's okay. Oh god.
ugh.
But then they get into Larsa's stuff with Marcus Jordan and the relationship, and Andy's like baffled at the fact that like Scotty never brings up Marcus. Apparently, Larsa says they have like a very like, they talk about the kids every once in a while, but their kids are grown for the most part, and so they leave each other to be by themselves. And it's like, it's not just the fact that this is Michael Jordan's son and like you were of a certain age to where like you probably could have babysit him.
Right.
But that it's Mike. I didn't watch whatever the last whatever that basketball documentary was that everyone watched that Andy will bring up all the fucking time. But Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen were rivals at a certain point. And so it's just like getting with your ex-husband's rival's son and just being like, well, we never knew each other and we just hit it off. Okay. Like, Lars is so dumb. She's so dumb.
Like, just the optics, I would have stayed away from that.
Yeah.
Like,
again, there's like how many men in this world? Like, you can pick from literally anybody.
Yeah,
and she also doesn't want to bring up that like because Andy's like, have you had like dinners with like Michael and she's like, I don't really want to talk about that. She like basically is like, I'm not going to talk about that. She did that with Tamron Hall as well, which is just like, I don't want to talk about my dynamic with Michael Jordan. So it's like, if you're going to acknowledge that's a subject you want to go to, you can't also act like, oh, it was just happenstance. We just fell into each other and like the dynamic. That it's weird.
And then to just project forward in time a little bit. What if you marry this man? And then Michael Jordan is now your father-in-law.
Yeah.
Like,
that's weird.
That's weird.
And
that has to be awkward.
Well,
come on.
Andy asked a fan question about if they're going to hyphenate their names, and everyone's just at the couches are just like, do not. Like,
I would live. Oh my God, it would be so good. But what did she say her maiden name was?
Oh, I couldn't. It was something. I'm guessing it's a Lebanese name.
Yeah,
like,
but it would have sounded good with Jordan.
Yeah.
So if you did that and then I remember at the time I was saying them together and I can't remember what it was, but it sounded good together. Even, I don't know. I think Pip and Jordan sounds good.
It sounds good, but just the.
But yeah,
you're dipping your hands in fate there. And then they talk about if does Larsa hit below the belt? Yes, and I love that
she carries a sledgehammer with her for the express purpose of hitting below the belt.
I love that Andy did the show of hands, which was very much the vibe of like,
it's
raise
very
your
Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Very raise your hand if you've been victimized by Larsa Pippen.
So Marisol originally says that she doesn't think so, but then Andy brings up that comments Larsa made about Marisol's mom in the first season and sort of how they fought about that. And Marisol's just like, she felt she was sticking up for her family because my mom made comments. I was sticking up for my family, but we've moved past it or whatever, which I get. But well, and also it's just like like she tries to play this as like I retaliate essentially. Like I don't, it's only when things are brought to me, when people are coming at me with attitude. Then how does it explain you bringing up the thing about Julia kissing a man?
Mm-hmm.
Like what did Julia do to you? I don't like that. Doesn't make any sense. And Julia says that like she originally denied it because she thought that Larsa wouldn't. She said that a week ago I was told that she meant a week ago you did this.
Right.
And so that's why she initially denied it. And then also says that like he's a designer for her and that the dress she's wearing at the reunion is his design.
Yeah.
Which like, I'm not saying he's gay, but like.
I mean, chances are that if you were a fashion designer and you were a man, you are gay.
Yeah.
But, maybe he defies the odds. We don't know.
We know they showed his picture and again, we've used this phrase over and over again, but he had gay face. Like, so that's all I'm saying.
But we've been wrong this year before. So.
I mean, they get into the discussion about the fight over Lisa's mortgage. And I love Andy just being like, you realize that was the stupidest fight I've ever seen on Housewives, right?
I love how Andy is at the place where he's just calling shit out like that.
And then Andy's just feeling himself and he tries to immediately go, raise your hand if you have a mortgage. And Lisa's like, Andy, stop. Like, this is not funny. And I get Lisa's point of like, my issue was not her saying I had a mortgage. The issue was she was saying it in the context of that me and Lenny couldn't afford our lifestyle and that, that we were renting our house out, which we were. She like then reveals like, yeah, we were renting the backyard out.
But her point was we were renting it out because we weren't using it, not because we needed the money.
And she was also saying that part of the reason why she wouldn't like come out immediately with that when her and Larsa were fighting was she wanted to protect Lenny in certain ways of like not making it seem like he's like, can't afford shit.
Especially if things are spiraling in their relationship at the time and because this is before they split up and and she's trying to protect that relationship as well. Like she's trying to, when you see things spiraling down the drain, you try to save as much as you can. And so I get that. I get her indication or her inclination rather to scramble to save everything that she can because she sees it slipping through her fingers.
Yeah, they go back to the Julia part, and then Adriana's like saying like that it could damage her relationship, and Larsa telling her just put a muzzle on it, girl. Like just like she is just like her and Adriana do not vibe whatsoever. And Larsa being like, guys, we live our lives on television, etc. It's gonna come out at some point. You have to understand it might come out. And then Andy goes, I mean, especially if your friend says it on camera. As just like, girl, you brought it out. Like, why you like you didn't have to say anything. And then Larsa's claiming that she like I didn't understand this, that she was like she would call them before bringing it up on camera. Is that what she was saying? That like. And it was like, I don't believe that.
That's what I was getting, but it was like that. Number one, I don't believe that just in general. But number two, I don't believe you capable of that level of empathy or forethought.
Yeah.
Like, you're vicious and mean to people. Why would you have any concern whether someone was hurt by what you were going to bring up? Like, stop trying to act like you're a good person here.
No,
like you're not.
No, she's an innocent victim. And then we get to the Nicole rumor.
Yeah, she also didn't get a BBL.
About her sleeping with everyone in the hospital or whatever. And Marisol's like doubling down and saying now that it's aired, she's been flooded with DMs saying that, oh, it was most of the people in the hospital, etc., whatever. And Nicole being like, is the DMs you're getting coming from Larsa's fake accounts that with 0 followers on them? What? Which like, Nicole came prepared.
It wouldn't be the first time fake Instagram accounts have been used to spread misinformation.
Jill Zarin.
Or what's her face on Salt Lake City?
Oh, yeah.
Well, technically her husband.
Either one. Yeah, yeah. And then I forgot like Nicole and Larsa are just yelling at each other. And Nicole's like, I'll take a lie detector test too. And Andy just goes, well, we don't have one. So it's like, I love he's just like, what do you think? Yes, we're just gonna rent them and like bring them out in this.
Bring out
reunion
that
right now.
one guy that's been on every reality television show.
Yeah, at least do what Quad did on Married to Medicine and get it before the reunion. Bring the results. Like shit, if you're gonna,
I mean, they've even had him on Bravo shows before, haven't they?
Remember when Vanderpump did after Puppygate?
And it was that same one that was on like
he's on
I Love
everything.
New York, and he's been on everything.
Yeah, literally, if you're in the LA area and you need he's there. And then Larsa in the fight goes, I don't have time to like make fake Instagram accounts. We have real jobs, unlike you.
What?
I'm sorry. Wait. Hold up. Nicole is a literal doctor, an anesthesiologist, and Larsa sells feet pics on OnlyFans. I'm not degrading her for that, but like other than that and this show, those are your only jobs, Larsa. Like, what are you? A real job? Nicole doesn't have a real job? Are you serious? She is so delusional and insane.
It broke my brain. I was like, this woman literally like was the anesthesiologist for,
which we find out later.
Right, we talk about later, but Martina, when she's going into exploratory surgery for her cancer, she's the anesthesiologist. She's actively taking care of people on this cast. Not even just on this cast, but everybody else in the Miami area who needs surgery. She's, the anesthesiologist or one of the anesthesiologists called to do that.
And Julia brings that up, and then Larsa goes, I'm not degrading her job. You just did. You said she didn't have a real job. What are you talking about?
And the implication is that you don't have a real job like I do because I take bunches of pictures of my feet all day.
Yeah. Ugh.
Girl.
And then Larsa tries to make the argument of like, Andy starts yelling at certain point, being like, you're all talking over each other. And then Larsa is like, you can't talk about like how this could damage you when you're on camera talking about tits and ass and talking about giving blowjobs. It's like, that's not the same thing. Like
she was talking about having sex with her boyfriend, husband? I can't remember.
Fiance now.
Fiance now. So, like, she was talking about having sex in a committed relationship, and she's also not wearing these revealing outfits in the operating room.
Yeah.
Like every other surgeon and anesthesiologist and nurse in that operating room, she's wearing scrubs.
What she does in her personal life outside of the hospital and outside of the people that she works with in the hospital literally has no effect on her professionalism.
Yeah.
At all.
Literally, yeah.
And then Larsa brings up that she's upset about Anthony's comments about her, that she's a homewrecker and stuff like that. And it's like, she's like, and that's why I initiate, and she tries to be like, well, that's why I went after Nicole with that stuff. And it's like, that's because I always retaliate. And Andy's like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, you didn't see that until it aired.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? And then she's like, oh, he calls me a homewrecker. You're a homewrecker working your way off the ladder. And Andy's like, that's not what a homewrecker is. Like, that's literally not the definition of a homewrecker.
It's right there in the name. It's where you wreck a home. Like, there was no home to be wrecked, therefore not a home wrecker. I don't understand.
Larsa is so bad at this, but like she's also so like conceited to where she doesn't understand that she's bad at this, that it becomes hilarious.
Consider who she's close friends with.
Yeah, there we go. And then there's the discussion about the whole bastard child thing again, and how like I wasn't shaming you by saying you had a child out of wedlock or whatever. And I love Andy just leaning over to her at one point, not just conceding anything, and just goes, look, it's an asshole thing to say. Like,
like when Andy Cohen is calling you an asshole.
Yeah.
Like,
but also, so apparently this was the moment that like, because when the reunion filmed, there was all this like Gertie went in interviews and basically, because there was, because Andy like had Instagram lives about how he yelled at Larsa at one point. And everyone's like, why did he yell at Larsa? Like, and like,
this is not yelling.
He didn't really yell at her.
He didn't even raise his voice.
He was very firm, but he didn't yell at her. Like,
but he also was like, just pointing something out. He wasn't even like being firm, like in the way that he was firm with Giselle. Like, no, you're going to talk about this right now. No, this was more of a, okay, but you're being hypocritical because what you did was the asshole move, not anybody else.
And they talk about the disinvitation mirror that Nicole sent Larsa.
So good.
And I
it was at that moment where I became a Nicole stan. It was.
I also love. So Julia's asked about it, of what she thought. She's like, "I'm sorry, I know it, whatever, but I thought it was really funny. It was classic British humor. Like what? It felt like very. Remember when old Beverly Hills episodes where Vanderpump would always say, like, when she would say something shady about someone, she's like, "Oh, British humor. I'm British." Like, it was very that vibe. Like.
It's not British just because it had an accent. Like
no. But not the right accent for in Nicole's case.
Right.
They start talking to Kiki asking about like sort of her sex life, and she says that her vagina chakra is still closed. And they get into the discussion that because of like Kiki saying in her confessional that she could tell that Lenny was a cheater because of the shape of his head. And Andy's like, "What's my shape? Based off of my shape, what do you think?" And she's like, "You're wild."
And from the stories I've heard, she's correct.
Yeah, I don't think like it sounded crazy when she said the whole shape of the head thing, but like, I don't think she's wrong necessarily. Like,
I would put her to a test for a silhouette test.
And it's very the Brandy Glanville lesbian eyebrows thing.
Like, if Brandy can pick a lesbian because of their eyebrows, I'm sure Kiki could pick a cheater because of their head shape.
Yeah.
Like we need scientific studies. I'm going to call like a few researchers I know. We're going to put something together.
Yeah. We talk a little bit more about the Lenny stuff. Gertie said that there was this unaired scene where they were at this fundraiser and they were sort of in this like roped off area, like VIP area. And Lenny refused to like join them.
And then they show some of that footage.
Yeah. And which was very odd. And then they bring up the question that you had asked last week about like how can Lisa feel blindsided by this? Like, it seemed like pretty obvious. Like,
yeah, but I mean, I can also understand when you don't want to see it. Like, you want to believe the best from your partner. Even when everything's falling apart, you still want to believe that there's hope and that there's a future.
What I don't understand is the Halloween party thing that recently happened. Like,
absolutely not.
And she was like, he kind of convinced me or whatever. It's just like, I don't like, it's one thing to agree to have it at your house still and be like, give the go ahead. That doesn't mean you have to go and co-host it.
Oh no. See, I find it strange that Lenny wanted her to be involved. Because knowing that there was the restraining order and that his girlfriend couldn't be there.
Yeah.
If I was Lisa, would have absolutely been involved because I knew that she couldn't be there because I was there. Because that's a petty move.
Sure.
And that to me is hilarious. But I would just be there like up in my room. I wouldn't be involved in the party. But just me being in the building means she can't be there.
Yeah. And then Kiki's kind of making a face to the side, and Andy sort of noticed it and asked her about it. And she's like, I've being in a model and sort of the industry, I've seen sort of that, and I've been to Lenny's parties and Lisa's parties over the years, and that she knows models that Lenny had cheated with, allegedly, over the years as well. And then that's the big cliffhanger as we end this episode, and hopefully we'll get more details in part 3. Loving this reunion so far. Like, yeah, still really, really good stuff. Like,
it's a better reunion than we got from the other 2 reunions we've covered so far on this show. So
yeah, and from an all-time great season, I think this is a really good stuff that Miami's
they
doing.
keep setting the bar high. Like, why they're still on Peacock and not airing on Bravo, I have no idea.
I mean,
season 6 needs to be put on Bravo.
I get that they want people to buy Peacock, but
yeah,
give them a little bit more light. We're gonna take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we are talking the newest episode of Vanderpump Rules, and there is so much more to talk about. Don't go anywhere.
Well, hello, friends. I'm your pal in the mainstream media.
And I'm the Riz.
And, Riz, it takes years of strenuous, dedicated training before you're worthy to step inside a professional wrestling ring. But it takes even more time to develop complex, highly astute opinions about professional wrestling. Am I right?
That is correct. And you know where we can combine that?
Yes.
On the Wrestling Mayhem.
That's right.
I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin.
And if you're anything like us, you live your life out loud.
And when it comes to issues of discrimination, inequity, and outright bigotry, we use every platform we have to speak out against systems of oppression that perpetrate violence against marginalized groups.
That's why we are so proud to wear designs from the Survivors Know merch store. Their team has created designs that feature unapologetic, empowering, and survivor-centered messaging that range from mild,
like accountability is love and toxicity is not on the menu,
to a little more spicy.
like one of my favorites, fuck your laws, fuck your system, transformative justice now, which has a cute little happy flower on it.
Each design is available on a variety of items from t-shirts and hoodies to bags, blankets, magnets, and even stickers. And as more items become available, the options will continue to grow.
100% of the proceeds go back into supporting the amazing work done at Survivors Know to support survivors, workers, and survivor advocates by organizing, challenging the status quo, and creating alternatives to the systems that fail us.
Support Survivors Know by shopping today at survivorsknow.threadless.com.
That's survivorsknow.threadless.com.
Sidekick Media Services. We are your sidekick in business for social media, video production, and more. Find out more at sidekickmediaservices.com.
Welcome back to Gay and His Enby. It is time to head to the Pacific. Or not quite to the Pacific, because a lot of this episode takes place in Nevada.
I love that we've become where in the world is Carmen Sandiego.
But we are headed over to at the very east, or oh my goodness, I cannot speech today. I'm just gonna leave and let Eamon take over the rest of this.
Vanderpump Rules!
Vanderpump Rules!
Oh God, there's so much more to talk about. We didn't think the drama was over. It's obviously gonna, until the end of this season, it's gonna just keep continuing. But
and this episode really dips a little bit for me, but I know it's going to take off next episode, so I'm not even worried.
But also, so Andy prefaced on his radio show, going into this episode, that just so everyone is aware, we did not re-edit this episode. This was already in the can, edited before all this Tom and Raquel stuff came out.
Which is mind-boggling to me that they wouldn't go back and try to re-edit some of this.
But you would think they did. You would think they did with some of these moments.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so they're coming back from Disco Pussy, and the girls are in Vegas.
I'm still, that name.
So good.
Whoever named that bar, good job.
Yeah. And they're getting out of the elevator, and Raquel's shoes broke, and she's just struggling to get into her bed or whatever. They keep Raquel's allegedly really drunk in this moment. I didn't get that. It seemed.
I mean, she's stumbling, so she's at least that.
She seemed very clear in her speech, and
that's fair.
By that point, very intentional in her speech. She's in her confessional, being like, Raquel is now wild and free and single and fun. Oh God. And Lala and Katie and Christina Kelly are in the bed, and Lala's just like, Raquel's on a journey right now. Raquel's microwaved all these leftovers from Vanderpump Paris and is eating them in the bed. And Raquel's just like, well, and Katie told me I shouldn't put aluminum in the microwave.
Yeah, because something's going to explode. How do you get to that age and not know to not put metal in the microwave?
With all the stuff that's been coming out, I have had a lot of questions of whether it's all an act. Of this sort of dumb narrative. I really am torn.
That's an interesting take.
Well, and because we have some moments this episode where I feel that way. Either she's very, I know this isn't the technical term, either she's very bipolar in sort of her intense, her cuttingness versus the moments where she's more timid and a little dumb, or she's putting it on. And I think, time will tell. So, and they're talking about Raquel making out with Oliver, and then Katie in her confessional says that she's seeing a pattern with Raquel, and that she's only interested in men who her friends are either married to or are interested in. Again, this episode was not re-edited. And then Lala brings up that she says she makes a comment about, you're because they were like, well, Raquel's really drunk tonight, and she says, "You drinking, I would never trust you around my man, even though I let you have Oliver, But in a situation where you're drinking, I would never trust you around my man." And then Raquel clearly that's why I'm saying she's either wasn't drunk or was cognizant of what she was saying, because she clearly takes offense to this, and then makes the comment of, "Well, thank God you don't have a man." And all the women are like, "Raquel, that is not okay." I don't that's where I'm like, I don't think she was drunk. I don't think it just seemed odd to me.
I didn't see a store at that bar where you can buy an obscene amount of Audacity, but she somewhere picked it up and it was just what?
And also I saw a lot of people after this episode being like, I don't like Raquel and I think she's an asshole for what she did to Ariana and all this stuff, but she really nailed Lala this whole episode. I'm like,
bitch, where?
I maybe out of context, but when you know the context, it just is not there.
Even when you don't know, even if you are watching this without the knowledge of what is happening now, it's just, that was extremely low. That wasn't a gotcha moment. That was a, wow, you're a bitch moment.
Well, and I think there was other people being like, well, they came off as mean girls this episode, which I kind of again,
I don't get that.
There's that scene where they're talking about them in the bed and Raquel's listening from the door and Katie's makes the comment hide your kids, hide your boyfriends.
But also
she's not wrong.
She's not wrong. And then also, how did the girls not see the cameras literally panning from them on the to the door and back? Literally you see the crew. The crew's not invisible.
I get if you were someone who knew nothing about these women and you saw that scene, it could look mean girlish, but I just don't think with the context it does that. And also Christina has to go into Raquel's room to get Katie's makeup bag and sees that Raquel brought a galaxy light on this because apparently
I like them. I think they're cute.
I like them too. I don't understand bringing them on a trip unless they're specifically for if you have specific sleep problems.
Well, some of them have ambient noise, and so if you have,
it's like Kathy Hilton bringing her fan.
Yeah. I mean, if you need the white noise or whatever in the background to sleep, or if you need soft lighting, and a lot of hotels just don't have what you need in order to sleep, then I get it. Or even if it's just a comfort item and it's something you're used to. I don't see a need to ridicule someone for something so innocuous. I think it didn't affect anybody else.
I think the thing is that it kind of it plays off of this whole Raquel acts like a child sort of narrative that she's had for a couple seasons.
Sure.
And but I think that's what they kind of latch on to. But I don't know. It didn't seem like a big deal to me. They wake up the next morning and Raquel and Lala have a talk, and Raquel's like, I think I said something last night while I was drunk, but and I feel like it was bad. That's why I'm like, that seems bullshit. That seems bullshit.
Girl, I think you were just trying to see. I think she was drunk, but because there was a weird lull in the middle of her sentence when she was saying it that really follows drunken speech patterns.
Sure,
but she wasn't drunk enough to where she was even really
where she
slurring, so there's no way that she doesn't remember what she said.
Yeah, exactly. Something doesn't seem right. And then Lala basically forgives her or whatever, and it's and she says, "I respect people's relationships, and I think you do too." Again, didn't re-edit this episode.
It's just ugh.
And then Raquel in her confessional thinks that Lala is being a hypocrite for lecturing her about respecting relationships when she had sex with James when they were together
6 years ago.
Which we'll get to it when they get to dinner. So we go over to Schwartz's apartment and Sheena's there and they are meeting with a stylist, Shira, to sort of go over Schwartz's wardrobe, and Sheena's saying that like Schwartz needs to get back his big dick energy and rebound from this
Get back. When did he ever have?
He is a big dick
energy.
That's for sure. And Sheena, well, and it's like, you know, oh, he needs to rebound after. It's as if Schwartz is like, I'm sure Schwartz is emotional about the divorce, but it's like, again, like Katie's the one that's been needing to rebound in terms of things. Schwartz has the friend group. He has like his loyal followers and stuff like that. It's not, you know. And then Sheena is basically being like, well, Katie's throwing a girls' trip to celebrate her divorce. So you should, you know, get over her essentially. It's
well,
like,
that's not what happened.
it's not really that she's celebrating her divorce.
It's
like,
more of a, hey, the mood around here sucks. Let's lighten the mood.
yeah. And so Sheena's like, let's do a guys' night.
Little did they all know the mood was about to suck worse.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, oh, I'll come too, even though it's a guy's night. You know, we'll get into that. They're driving to Arizona to go to Lake Havasu. The girls are. And Christina Kelly brings up that it seemed like at Vanderpump Paris that Katie's mom had like hope for possibly amending between Schwartz and Katie.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't seem like that to me. Like Katie was on Watch What Happens Live after the episode, and basically the way she phrased it was like, in order for like Schwartz and I to get back together, Schwartz would basically have to be lobotomized and be a different person. Like I would have to see like, it's not like the words don't fucking matter anymore. He's not going to change his actions.
Yeah. At this point, he's 40 fucking years old. He's set in his ways. He's never been a different person as far as we can see for the last 10 years. So I don't know why anybody has any hope for him being a different person now.
No, not at all. Oh, and then so Christina asked Raquel about like if the James like sort of breakup was bad and like their issues. And then we find out from Raquel, which I actually believe Raquel on this, is that what sort of led to the breakup and ending canceling the wedding was that James exploded at Raquel's dad on Thanksgiving. And she was saying that on the car ride home, he was saying that her dad's pathetic and that he's only like with her mom because he's like a bitch or whatever. No, he calls her mom a fat bitch, Raquel said. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, James.
So I am not on his side in the way that he spoke about her parents in that car ride. But her parents were pretty bad to him.
Her dad was,
her dad was pretty awful to him.
I don't know about her mom. But,
so I can understand him blowing up at her dad.
But also I understand, like, I don't know if that was her dad necessarily on her. I mean, her dad kind of seems like a dick, but also James is an asshole. And so I could understand.
No, yeah, 100%. But even when James was, for brief moments, trying to be a good person and trying to, you know,
he at last year's reunion, when he was telling about this Thanksgiving, he was framing it as like he was making attempts. He was doing all this like these like visible like gifts sort of thing to try to like smooth things over, and her dad wasn't taking it, you know, whatever. So and she didn't
like correct him. She didn't say no, that's not true.
But also like I don't. This is the one case where I don't know who to believe, and I could see it being either one of them lying. But that's just me. And then but she basically says that her plan was that when he was in London, she was basically just going to pack up all her stuff and then leave the ring and then just peace out. Which, I mean, like, you know, I wouldn't necessarily blame her. That's the other thing from this whole thing is just like James is not suddenly a good guy because Raquel cheated with Tom. Like,
yeah,
that's not a thing. But Raquel is like talking about how she kind of is having an identity crisis and she doesn't know who she is really. And then she starts crying and having basically a panic attack.
Which I get. I've been in that situation before where it's just like, oh crap, where's my life going? Who even the fuck am I right now?
Yeah.
So like I felt for a person that is in that situation, not Raquel because she's evil, but but you know, a human being with empathy. I feel for that person who is going through this.
Well, a lot of people were asking questions too of like, was this panic attack partially guilt of if this stuff with Tom was already happening.
See, okay, so I was gonna wait till we got to the after, like with all of that, but like the way that there's this. What was this podcast?
It's called Jamie All Over.
So that was like somebody who was apparently at this party, the guys' night party, but was not on camera.
Right.
Says that night they had like taken a picture or a video or something
of Tom and Raquel
talking. And, you know, in the moment they didn't realize anything was kind of hinky with it. But after looking back at it, they had realized that like without the voiceover that they had put on it, that it might be read in the quote unquote wrong context, a spoiler alert, in the correct context. So they took it down for Ariana's benefit. But it's also been characterized that this is when their relationship quote unquote got deeper.
Yeah.
Which makes me question that that's just odd phrasing.
Are we talking about that the friendship turned into something more? Or are we
talking about the flirting and the texting turned into physical?
Right.
Because if that's what happened, when did it actually start?
Yeah.
When did we cross the line?
That's what, I mean, we're going to have to find out. I think that makes a big difference in terms of this whole thing.
Yeah.
So they arrive at the house in Lake Havasu, and then Charlie arrives. Charlie was the queen of this episode. Charlie.
Yeah, but she also was on the wrong side of things.
Well, she was. Yeah, she is obviously on Raquel's side, and that's clearly the wrong side. And like, I'm saying the moments were good, and obviously Charlie now everything's come out. Like Charlie was basically on Twitter like cursing out Raquel's sister or whatever, being like,
yeah, that was great.
Like, so Charlie knows where her bread is buttered now. Like,
yeah, but I mean, it also was not. It was kind of funny to see New School and the girls that are still working at SUR are together.
Yeah,
and the girls who are moved on from that are together, and like that's where those lines are drawn.
Well, Charlie was also giving me like early season Stassi. In certain ways.
Yeah.
She comes into the house and goes, "Hello, single whores." And then
God, I miss Stassi on this show.
She's in her confessional talking about Christina Kelly, and she's like, "I know Christina Kelly because she used to work at SUR, and now she sells lip balm for a living." And it's just
it was definitely you've done your homework on this show, Charlie.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job.
I always thought Charlie had such potential when that Zoom reunion where she called Jackson old man. Like she had such potential. So I'm hoping like it'll get good. We go to the Toms at Tom Tom, and
that's a lot of use of that word.
Oh God. And Sandoval's like, you know, even with the whole stuff with Schwartz and Sandy, it's like Tom Tom has been a very consistent, reliable thing in my life. What's that like? And they basically discuss like we're gonna end up sticking with Greg because we don't want to risk like taking the money from Vanderpump and selling our Tom Tom stake and then like not getting anything out of it. Probably the right idea.
Especially now.
Yeah, Schwartz consults his Magic 8-Ball app. This man is 40.
Hey, he was 39 at the time.
Sure. James comes by and because they're trying out new stuff for the cocktails, and Schwartz keeps being like, "I want to try a new spritzer." Like he's really emphasizing this like spritzer narrative, and then he's like, "What about a beer spritzer?" And I'm like, I can drink a beer. I don't love beer, but like this like spritzer mix with like Coors Light and like no, like not even the good shit.
Even good beer tastes like deep throating a wheat field. It's not fun. Like, it's just not.
And then Schwartz brings up to James that they want to do a guys' night plus Sheena because Sheena's basically one of the guys. Whatever. And then like James is talking about like, you know, other than if it's just Sheena and no other girls, that's fine. Like Allie doesn't really want me around other, particularly Raquel and stuff like that. Raquel would only be in this group if it was for me and stuff like that. And so she keeps trying to latch on. It's like, get your own life. Next time, we're gonna get DJ fucking Raquel. See you at See You Next Wednesday. Fuck off. Like James is just like so insane.
Like he didn't do the same thing to Kristen to
exactly
get into this group.
Yeah, that's what all of you do. I don't like. So then the ladies go out to dinner at Martini Bay. This is where I was like, okay, Lala. Like,
I mean, it's a good name, but it's not. It's no disco pussy.
No, it's not disco pussy. They bring up Raquel's drinking last night again. And like this is where I was like, okay, like. You guys settled it in the hotel room.
Well,
you had
part of it though was explaining the situation to Charlie.
Sure, and then and Charlie's also like when she talks about the Oliver part, and Charlie's like, it sounds like Lala was a little bitter about not getting Oliver, which I can believe to a certain extent. Maybe not bitter, but that like her ego maybe took a little hit.
Maybe,
but like and then she brings up Raquel's comment again about, well, luckily you don't have a man. And says that it was as a woman, I would take offense to that. Like, any woman would, find that offensive and just not a wrong thing. This is where I was just like, you made amends in the hotel room. You had the moment in the car where she was having a panic attack. Like she was like theoretically, if we're meant to be believed, and you confided in her and you supported her in that moment. Why are we bringing up again at the dinner table?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's getting Charlie up to speed, and I think you can't like bring it up and then not discuss it because, like, yeah, like if it's going to be brought up, it's going to be rehashed a little bit. If for no other reason than Charlie needs to have her ability to have her 2 cents heard on it, right?
Yeah.
So I get kind of why it's being rehashed, but it was being rehashed matter-of-factly. Nobody was getting emotional about it, I thought, until Raquel kind of took offense to them talking about it. And that's when Lala was like, nah, bitch.
I just feel like you could tell.
You need to own the fact that you fucked up.
Sure.
And that's what's going to happen here. So we're going to talk about it again because Charlie wasn't there. So we're going to talk about it, and you're going to sit in your shame for doing this bullshit.
And I agree that Raquel wasn't necessarily owning certain things. Like, I agree with that. But the whole, like, Lala saying, like, as a woman or whatever, and then Charlie in her confessional, this episode, she's like the confessional queen, is like, she says, I don't know who made Lala the spokesperson for women, but we need a new president. Talk about how you went from a mansion back to an apartment. It was like, wow.
Yeah, but shaming someone for leaving an abusive husband, like, I just...
Well, I don't know if Lala is specifically... Well, she has at the reunion, at the last reunion. And the only thing I would agree with Charlie, though, is that, like, because Raquel says, like, well, I should be up, after you being with James while we were together, and Lala tries to say that, well, this was 6 years ago. And I do agree that Charlie brings up, okay, but you've only brought this up to her recently. Like, she's only finding out about it now. It's like, to say that it was 6 years ago, it's not like Raquel has had 6 years to heal from it.
Right. But it's also very different to hold someone to act. It is different to hold someone accountable for something that they did 6 years ago that you were just finding out about. And it's something completely different to act like they are the same person and that they are a hypocrite to call you out on your current behavior.
Sure.
That is different. And I think that is my reason that I'm with Lala here, because Lala's like, I have grown and I am a different person than I was back then. I will own that I did that shit, but I also was an alcoholic and I also was like going through all of this stuff. So it's like, I'm a different human being today than I was 6 years ago. Today, I would not do that. So today, I am not a hypocrite for calling you out for what you did less than 24 hours ago.
That I agree
That's
with.
different.
And also, I didn't like Raquel being like, well, I didn't make out, like, because the Schwartz thing comes up, and is like, well, yes, but we never made out.
But
and
you tried to.
yeah, and Lala's like, don't try to take credit for the fact that you didn't make out with him. You only didn't make out with him because he denied it.
Right.
Like that's what. And then Katie is like, I've been trying to give you passes, Raquel, but like I'm, it's that. And she says, I could light your ass on fire for what you've done. Katie really loves she used the metaphor again in Watch What Happens Live about Schwartz about lighting his ass on fire. I could see why her and Stassi were friends.
Yeah.
Remember when Stassi used to always be like, I will pick your eyeballs out with like a toothpick and I will take them in the street, run them over with my car.
Honestly, it's Nene Leakes level, like Nene Leakes, and also like I've just finished rewatching Glee. It's like Sue Sylvester level, like insults and threats. Like it's beautiful, and there's like a craftsmanship to that level of viciousness that we still don't have back on this show, and that's why I want Stassi back. Mm-hmm. Bring back Stassi.
And I do agree with, because Lala storms off because Raquel says that you were a mistress or whatever again, which again,
like that's that.
I mean, does it?
But she didn't know that.
Is it technically a mistress if the couple isn't married that they're home wrecking? Would Raquel be considered a mistress?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
it doesn't matter if there's a marriage. Yeah.
I would say that at that point they were married other than with a contract.
Sure.
So
I agree.
It's still a mistress.
But and I agree with Lala's point here, which was she says in her confessional, the word mistress offends me because Randall has never had to defend himself. It was me that paid for that. And I do agree with that. And I think we do that too much as a society where we blame the woman. And obviously we're doing it and maybe we're hypocrites because we're doing it to a certain extent with Raquel.
But we're
also
different.
I think we would both agree that Sandoval is the bigger offender of the two.
Yes, but it's also a different situation because, like, Lala was not friends with Randall's wife at the time when that was happening. So there was no, and she didn't know that she was
allegedly.
She claims that she does not know or did not know at the time that they were still together. So like. It's not the same thing. Like Raquel went in being friends with Ariana and continuing to actively be friends with Ariana
and do this
while this is happening.
And we talked about it last week. Like flaunted the relationship in front of her to a certain extent
with that fucking necklace.
Yeah. It's completely different.
Like it's a completely different level of violation. And yes, was Lala wrong? Yes. In that moment when she was with Randall, who was married, yes, she was wrong, but she didn't know she was doing wrong.
Sure.
According to her.
Because there's been a discussion with this like modern stuff of what's coming out now with Sandoval and Raquel. I've seen some people be like, but with both Lala and James, of the fact that they've been the two most vocal on social media about this stuff. I don't think like everyone's a hypocrite in a certain way in life. No one's a perfect person, and to where they can, when you're judging someone naturally, that you are in a sense a hypocrite. I think there is like maybe levels and like how you respond to something. Like if you're like, the whole like I'm trying to make a metaphor of this. That's the only way I can think of it. But like the whole throwing stones in a glass house metaphor. I think so, we naturally sometimes throw stones in a glass house, but sometimes you have boulders, and so therefore, like I think it's particularly bad with James more than Lala.
Yeah,
like James is trying to basically act as though this absolves him of everything he's fucking done.
Yes, I think if James was. I don't know. I feel like James is taking more joy in it than anything.
Sure.
Than really condemning Raquel. He's more just taking joy in it, which to me is not necessarily hypocritical.
I think also part of him wants to...
different when, again, I think it's not hypocritical when someone criticizes someone else for doing 10 times worse than they did 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, that's not hypocritical. That's called growth.
Sure. Growth. That meme.
Like, we're allowed to grow and change our opinions on things. Just because I call someone out as a white person, just because I call someone out for being racist, does not make me a hypocrite because I have grown from a racist past.
Sure.
Like, that's just growth. That's what we do as humans. That's what we're supposed to do, is grow up and evolve. And I feel like Lala is doing that, and she's calling out someone who is behaving worse than she did for what is being equated to that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Now, yeah. In modern times, not in terms of the episode, but yeah.
Right.
So we go to Ariana's in bed, still grieving the loss of Charlotte, her dog, and LVP's FaceTiming her, and it's not funny. It's not funny. But I was telling you, like, it was just like the weird reality TV-ness of it all. Of like LVP, like, I was thinking of you outside by my dog's like headstones, and like just like it was just like an odd way to like. I wouldn't have brought that up, me personally, if I was like checking on someone grieving in that way. Of like, look at all the like, mention all these dead dogs that I have. Like,
I feel like this was edited a bit.
Sure.
I feel like Lisa was out there and she was like, this was a thing that helped me heal.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call.
The fault is on the producer and the camera director for just cutting to the fucking gravestones.
Right. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
There was better context to this. Y'all just made it feel awkward.
And then LVP's like, I'm gonna bury Ken out here too.
Well.
Oh, and then so this is like this is a part where they have like multiple scenes like playing like one after the other. But as they transition from the scene of Ariana, the song in the background, I can't recreate it, but it's the lyrics, it's just the person going over again. You deserve better, you deserve better, you deserve better. Again, they didn't re-edit this. They
like that just oh my God. It was beautiful.
It was perfect. And then Sheena.
But to be fair, there had already been evidence of her deserving better.
Oh,
like with
sure.
the way that Sandoval had acted the episode before.
Yeah, well, especially in context. Like,
yeah.
But Sheena is going on a walk with Brock and Summer Moon and talking about how she's happy that she's not at
such a hippie name. Anyway, sorry.
But she's like, I'm happy I'm not going to Katie's, like Havasu thing. If the dividing lines are drawn, I'm Team Tom. That's fine. That aged well. I know she was talking about Tom Schwartz, but like,
no, I mean, even now it doesn't really age that great.
Yeah. So we go to the house in Lake Havasu and we find out that Raquel slept with Charlie that night, and moved her stuff into Charlie's room. And then they went to karaoke the night before.
To be clear, as far as we know, slept next to Charlie.
Sure,
she has slept with other people in this cast. We'll talk about it.
One point faster. And Raquel's like, I want to leave. I don't feel comfortable here, with everything that's happened, and maybe we can crash boys' night.
But here we go.
Here we go. I literally screamed. I was like, hear it? Because that podcast that we mentioned before, according to a guy who was friends with Raquel, who he says that Raquel talked to her after the whole stuff came out. Raquel apparently claimed to him that this is where it started, at the boys' night.
Well, she said after Vegas, which this is what they come home from Vegas to do.
Yeah.
Specifically, is go to boys' night. So it would indicate to me, next episode, there will be hints or evidence, maybe.
This is where we got to be eagle-eyed.
We're all gonna have like our we're gonna be scooching frame by frame through these episodes and playing detective. Yeah. It's gonna be great. I'm excited.
So Raquel and Charlie come out to see the girls on the patio, and Raquel's like, I've decided I just want to leave. I don't feel comfortable here. And this was not necessary. And Raquel goes, we're gonna go to boys' night and visit with Sheena and Schwartz. And like the look on Katie, Lala, and Christina's face is just, this was unnecessary for Raquel to say.
She didn't need to say where she was going. She just said, we're going home.
She noticed that she didn't say, we're going to go to boys' night with the guys and Sheena. She said, I'm going to go with Sheena and Schwartz.
The two people that y'all are actively not wanting anything to do with.
She named those two people, I feel, purposely to try to fuck with Katie.
Yeah.
And I think that means you're an asshole at the end of the day. Like, I think, like, and we, like, Katie on Watch What Happens Live, like, I feel so bad for Katie in terms of this scene. I don't think Katie deserves this shit in terms of, like, and the baseline of what's happening with Schwartz and Raquel. It's just like leave her the fuck alone. And like yeah. It's so frustrating. And Christina's like, oh, well, she'll probably go sleep with Schwartz or whatever. And Charlie's like, don't make it like that. And Charlie in her confessional going, and great to see Christina can finally say something without Katie's dick in her mouth. and then her going, Katie, why?
It was so good. It was, oh my God, it was the voice that Pedro Pascal did on SNL.
Yes.
And that
The hospital scene.
hospital. Oh my God, that was it just clicked in my brain just now, and it was yes.
Yeah, and Raquel being like telling Lala like, look, I think you're just mad that Oliver chose me and not you. Again, just like, she's not this innocent little fawn in the woods. I'm sorry, like she's not. And then as they leave, like Lala says that and they're like, Katie, you need to also check your relationship with Charlie because I feel like she's influencing Raquel. I don't know about that necessarily. But Lala's like, these are two low vibration human beings. People use that phrase. What does that mean?
So like when we're talking about like high vibrational versus low vibrational really just means unevolved, like not having risen to your higher self and your higher calling and that sort of thing. It technically is rooted in like some white supremacy bullshit.
Sure.
But I don't think that a lot of people realize that. So I'm not going to like call her on that, but it is technically where it comes from. And it is a pipeline that can lead from mysticism into right-wing scary territory.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful about going down that road.
Yeah. But then the girls decide to go to the lake and they have fun on these like party boats and all that stuff, which Lala also makes a comment about like, Lauren from Utah knows how to get down on a party boat. For all these people being like, well, Raquel's real name is Rachel. Also, Lala's real name is Lauren.
Like nobody thought Lala's real name was Lala.
Well, but at least Lala's owning it, you could say, but whatever. So we go to Schwartz and Sandoval's, or Schwartz and Sandy's, I should say, for like a tasting that they're doing for the menu and stuff like that Greg's doing. And Ariana's there because, of course, Ariana supports Sandoval and everything he fucking does because, she had to show up even though she's grieving her dead dog. And
like poor woman couldn't get herself out of bed until 4:30 that day, but she still put on a full face of makeup and came out to film to support you in your restaurant that hasn't opened way past schedule. Anyway, continue.
And also they're hanging out. They're hanging out at the bar and Schwartz starts to go, hey, Ariana, how was Vegas? And he goes, oh, wait, I shouldn't have said that. Fucking Schwartz, like, shut up. You were an idiot.
He's like, it's so like, how do you put your foot in it that often?
It's ridiculous. There's no excuse.
It's similar to Adriana on Miami, just constantly saying the wrong thing and like,
I don't give him the benefit
quote
of the doubt.
unquote regretting it afterwards, but like,
does he regret it?
I don't know. Like,
or does he just chalk it up to another like, whoop, that's Schwartz?
I mean, or is it, that he's constantly been told that he's stupid and that he's clumsy, and so he's just going with it because it's easier. And I don't know. He needs some more psychoanalyzing before I have a full grasp on this man, because he's really only giving us one speed and has only given us one speed for 10 years. And I'm interested to see what other stuff he has.
Yeah. And Ariana's in her confessional crying about the losing Charlotte, and like it's just fucking depressing. Like it's they start trying out food and stuff. Again, like tuna ceviche, and like they have these like potato croquettes with like caviar on it. Keep in mind, Schwartz and Sandy's is in like a strip mall, like in like an okay part of like Los Angeles. Like
it was also weird, like the portions, like they brought out these like the tuna ceviche, like like what were they, like chalupas or something,
basically,
and there was like 8 of them, and they were huge. They were like a good like 4-inch round chalupa things, and it's like an entire platter of them. And Greg was very much like, hey, these don't need to be this big. They don't, like, this is a lot for an appetizer. And then the next appetizer they bring out, the potato things with the
Yeah.
caviar, there was 3 little balls in a bowl. And it's like, in what world are these 2 appetizers equitable?
Yeah.
Like, how do you have both of these on the menu?
We cut back to the Lake Havasu, and they broke out the Schwartz pinata for Katie to hit, and it's filled with condoms and tequila and a vibrator. She decapitates it, which is great. No notes.
No notes.
And then they're talking around the table about, like, what is Katie looking for in a new relationship when she starts dating again. And she talks about how she just wants someone that will put her first and value her opinion at the end of the day. And I like, and she's obviously still emotional about it. And she talks about, like, I needed more than a best friend in terms of this relationship, but also therefore because I'm ending it, I'm also losing my best friend.
Yeah.
So that's and it's hard and
for 12 years, that's a lot of history.
yeah. But I also, like, with that and with what she was saying on Watch What Happened, like, I resonate with Katie so much in terms of, like, she was made. And there are plenty of times where Katie's been mean and been not, the best person and stuff like that in situations. But, like, I think she's really been beaten down in this relationship for years in terms of, like, just, again, not having her opinion valued, not being listened to in certain ways. And then in turn, like, everyone just loving Schwartz, no matter what he does to her. And it's like, even though he's cheated on her, multiple times, like, the way he speaks to her in certain occasions. And I understand why she was, like, a couple episodes ago being like, well, if we divide the friend group, no one's going to be my friend. They're just going to, be with Schwartz at the end of the day, because he just keeps getting rewarded in certain regards for that. And that's the frustrating part to me. That's why I get frustrated with his dopies chick, because it's like, he can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
And no one's going to, like, bat an eyelash. But so we go to guys' night at Sky Bar. This is the same Sky Bar where Jax and James almost got into that fight.
It's also the same bar where Lala came in and said, hey, nobody's, got their summer body, I see.
Good times. Oh, this show. Such highbrow stuff. This was also so Sheena is there with the guys, right? And Tom Sandoval knows that Raquel and Charlie have left the trip. And I would say knows that they're coming, because if he got it from Sheena, assumedly, or directly from Raquel, I think is a also valid thought.
If they were already in talks.
But that means he knew they were coming.
Right.
And one, that's frustrating in terms of later springing in on James. And two, the fact that Ariana isn't there.
Yeah.
So you're having a guys' night that's not actually a guys' night. It's not a guys' night, and you just don't invite Ariana.
Yeah.
She's allowed to just sit at home and, like.
And I mean, maybe he did and she didn't want to go. Like,
maybe,
we don't
but
know. But I also don't trust him to take her feelings into account, considering everything that's happened. So,
yeah,
like, fuck that guy. I will say that this was a nice, rare moment for James, because when Raquel and Charlie come in, he's visibly upset.
Sure.
And to, like, say what you will about James, and maybe he was more upset because he was like, oh shit, I'm going to get in trouble. But it seemed to me like he was really concerned about how it was going to affect Allie. And I hope that that's what it was.
Sure.
I really do, because at the end of the day, nobody deserves to be in a shitty relationship. And I hope that he has grown even a little bit. I don't put a lot of stock into it, but I hope that he is taking Allie's feelings into account, and that he is upset because he doesn't want to hurt her. I hope it's less about him not getting in trouble, but I mean,
that seems like James.
Seems more like what he's done in the past, but I hope he has grown.
Yeah.
I hope that this is in concern of how this will hurt Allie.
Can we also talk about the fact that they bring up the fact that Raquel left early and had a fight with Lala. And James goes, Raquel and Lala together, it's like balsamic vinegar and olive oil.
Why does nobody get this?
How many times on Bravo do they fuck up this analogy?
Balsamic vinegar and oil makes vinaigrette. It's delicious.
It's literally dry. He also, most people say vinegar and oil. He went to the point to say balsamic vinegar and oil. That's literally balsamic dressing.
Like, it's literally delicious. You dip bread in it. It's yummy.
Like, Ramona can't get it right. Teresa can't get it right. Like, what is with this? Like, it's like constantly happening.
It's oil and water. Oil and water literally repel each other. They won't mix. It's like you can like put it in a blender together and get it to mix, but even
not
then
really.
Even then, it will separate itself from each. Like, it's not. You can't. It's.
We should also talk about. So the ladies also go to a country bar near Lake Havasu, which I feel like was a gay bar. Because
it felt like a gay bar.
Because there was like a furry in like fetish gear, like not fetish gear, like it was like a leather.
Yeah, it was like a leather harness and whatnot. But like, well, technically it's fetish gear, but I was struggling with. Isn't the furry suit already fetish gear? Kind of.
Anything is a fetish if you make it. Oh God,
we're not here to kink shame.
I'm glad
anybody.
that's in the airways coming out of my mouth. But so and then Lala is sort of flirting with these guys that she sees and brings them over. I noted the guy that Lala particularly was interested in looked a lot like Oliver, and I don't think that's going to help with the whole she was jealous of Raquel taking Oliver thing. I think someone would play into that. But then Raquel and Charlie arrive at the guys' night. And like you said, James is shocked by this. James is like, guys' night means nothing. Yay.
And it kind of stops the episode there pretty much.
But so Raquel, then we see these slow-mo shots and Raquel like sits next to Schwartz and the look on Sandoval's face was the most evil villain bullshit I have ever seen in my fucking life.
They had to have re-edited at least that. At least that. Like, come on. There's no way that was already there.
It was dark-sided. It was dark-sided shit.
Dark-sided!
Oh, God. But yes, that was this episode of Vanderpump Rules.
I kind of hope that next episode James, like, leaves.
Leaves? The party.
The party.
I thought you meant the show.
No, not the show. I mean, the party. If he were to get up and say, "Hey guys, I'm sorry, I need to go," then that to me would solidify that his concern is about Allie.
Sure.
If he stays, I'm pretty sure that the thought process is, well, I'm already in trouble. Might as well just stay. Which means that he didn't care about hurting her feelings. He cares about getting in trouble.
Yeah.
I hope he has the wherewithal to get up and leave. I hope that he has grown to that point to take her feelings into consideration. I don't think so.
I'm not a betting man.
I'm not a betting man. And if I were, I'd bet against it. But because Allie deserves someone who would do that.
Sure.
Because every woman deserves someone who would do that. We don't really know Allie enough to know her character, but every person in a relationship deserves a partner who puts their feelings first.
Yeah.
So I hope that that's the situation we're dealing with, but I don't think I'm gonna be satisfied with that.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna stay.
Yeah. Well, Vanderpump Rules is doing really well. Like the ratings are up, like from all indications. Like everyone's tuned in.
In the last 3 years, it's the best ratings, right? I think is what it said.
Yeah, everyone's tuned in, and this is gonna be like we're gonna be riveted. We're gonna be white knuckling through this one. So it's gonna be exciting.
Vanderpump Rules had better ratings than Drag Race did on premiere night.
Yeah,
like crazy. I think it was like 2-point-something million viewers. Like that to me is wild.
It's gotten the nation riled up, that to say the least. So
yeah.
Good on Bravo at least for that.
All right, so tops and bottoms. We got Jersey, we got Miami, we got Vanderpump. What you thinking, babe?
So my top for this week, I'm gonna give it to Charlie. I was laughing at Charlie a lot this episode. Of like her confessionals were really on point. This felt like the Charlie I thought had a lot of potential in season 8. Like she is, I would love to see more of her backstory. We didn't really get into much in sort of the 2 years she's been on the show, other than she doesn't eat pasta. But
I forgot about that.
But other than that, like I could see her being a really interesting character on this franchise, like going forward, especially if we want the women sort of being the focus and getting rid of the men. Like you still need some kind of like antagonist, and I think she could be that maybe. But I thought she did a really great job this episode. Very, very funny. My bottom for this week, also very funny, but also very wrong, which is why I'm putting her in the bottom, and that's Larsa. Girl was on something this reunion. Like, again, really funny, really hilarious. But again, like the comment about like Nicole not having a real job was just the one thing that I was just like mouth agape. Like, are you serious? You are not in the real world right now. Like but I mean, a trait of a good housewife is delusion. So we love to see it sometimes, but she's going to be my bottom for this week. What about you?
So mine this week, I think it's going to be a little bit unconventional in both of these, but stay with me, okay? My top for the week is the black woman on Miami who was just in someone's glam squad, who was like, I don't want to be in the middle of this. Like, Alexia's in my face, like screaming at people, and I just need to get out of the way. Like, I don't want to be in this fight. Like, girl, I get it.
What a metaphor.
Like, just like, she's like trying to get around the cameraman so that she's not in the line of fire. And I had to stop the episode because I was laughing so hard. Like, girl, I get it. Like, you just tried to collect your check and go home. I understand. That's my top for the week. My bottom for the week are these fans out here from of Jersey who are trying to equate Bill with
David
Bedore. That is malicious and inaccurate, and we like that cannot be allowed to stand. That cannot be allowed to continue happening. Like, you're maligning a man of color. Like, I fervently believe that a lot of it has to do with racism. Like, you would not be calling this man abusive simply for being quiet in a therapy session if he was not Turkish. What is there?
Yes.
Middle Eastern. But like, you would not be calling him that if he was not a man of color. And I have a strong issue with that.
And also, like with Bravo fans, sometimes I'm like, you guys really don't need to read into certain things when it's not present. Like, Bravo will present most of the things that are actually happening to your face. Like, it won't be something that you have to sort of like 6 degrees of interpret to get to that belief. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was just, to me, it really rubbed me the wrong way, especially when, like, he has been really supportive of Jennifer, and it may not be in the way that she necessarily wants, and there still needs to be some fixing between the two of them. And obviously, yes, he did cheat on her 10 years ago, and there's still that, but like, just like we have talked with other people on this show, what you did years and years and years ago is not equal to who you are today. Like, Bill is obviously a different man than he was 10 years ago. And if he wasn't, I believe that Jennifer is strong enough of a woman to have left him by now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, no, it was disgusting. It really turned my stomach to see that online. And I get it that Housewives is a lot of trashy goodness, but the fans don't have to also be trashy.
Yeah, do better.
Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of A Gay and His Enby.
Join us next time for more of our recaps and hot takes. And be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you are listening. And check us out on our social media at A Gay and His Enby on all the platforms.
A special shout out to Shane Ivers, who wrote Pulsar, the song we use for our theme.
I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin, and we're out.
This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.